The August sun hung heavy over Salt River Valley, pressing down on the Arizona territory like a blacksmith's hammer on an anvil. In the year 1875, this land still belonged more to silence than to men, more to memory than to progress. The kind of silence that made a man hear his own heartbeat, his own thoughts, his own regrets. Samuel Garrison sat on the porch of his cedar cabin, a rifle across his knees, watching the boy work. The boy's name was Ethan, 14 years old, all elbows and determination, trying to split firewood the way Sam had shown him 100 times before. The axe came down crooked. The log refused to split. Sam said nothing. He had learned long ago that silence taught better than words ever could. A man learned by doing, by failing, by trying again until his hands remembered what his mind had forgotten. That was the way of things out here, where the land gave nothing freely and took everything eventually. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead, leaving a streak of dirt across his temple. He positioned the axe again, this time adjusting his stance the way Sam had demonstrated. The blade came down clean, the wood split with a satisfying crack that echoed off the surrounding hills. Sam nodded once. That was enough. The boy understood. They had been together for 2 years now, ever since Sam found him wandering outside Fort Verde, his parents dead from fever, his future reduced to whatever charity the army might spare. Sam had taken him in without ceremony, without promises, simply because it was the right thing to do, the only thing to do. The cabin stood at the far end of the valley, backed against a slope of red rock and scrub pine, facing east toward the Salt River and the cottonwoods that marked its winding path. Sam had built it himself back when his hands were steadier and his heart less heavy. Cedar logs, river stone for the chimney, a roof of split shingles that had weathered 5 years of sun and storm. One bedroom, one main room that served as kitchen and living space, a loft where Ethan slept. Simple, sufficient, solitary. That was how Sam preferred it. He had learned that companionship brought complications, that love invited loss, that the safest way to live was to need nothing and no one. Except now there was Ethan, and that complicated everything. The boy set down the axe and looked toward the ridge to the north. Sam followed his gaze out of habit, scanning the horizon the way he had every day for 5 years, looking for something, afraid of finding it. "Mr. Sam," Ethan said, his voice uncertain. "There's someone coming." Sam's hand moved to the rifle before his mind registered the movement. Old instincts, soldier's reflexes that 20 years hadn't dulled. He stood slowly, eyes narrowing against the glare. At first, he thought it was a trick of the heat, the way the air shimmered and bent light into false shapes. But the figure kept moving, stumbling down the slope with the desperate, uneven gait of someone who had walked too far and had nothing left but will. Sam reached for the brass telescope he kept hung beside the door. The metal was warm against his palm as he extended it, bringing the figure into focus. A woman, patchy by the deerskin dress and the long black hair. Young, maybe 25, though pain and exhaustion had carved years into her face that time had not yet earned. She fell, pushed herself up, kept coming. Something in Sam's chest tightened, a feeling he had not allowed himself in a long time. Recognition without understanding, memory without context. She reached the fence line and grabbed the top rail with both hands. Her knuckles went white, her shoulders trembled. Blood stained her left shoulder, dark against the leather of her dress. Bruises mapped her ribs in shades of purple and black. Her feet were bare, torn and bleeding from the rocks. But her eyes were dark and unbroken and fixed on Sam with an intensity that rooted him to the earth. "I couldn't forget that night," she said. Her voice cracked like dried leather, but the words carried straight through him. "You saved my life. That's why I'm standing here." The rifle slipped from Sam's hand. It clattered against the porch boards, but he barely heard it. The past he had buried, the guilt he had carried, the face he saw in nightmares, all of it rose at once, alive and staring back at him. 5 years dissolved in a heartbeat. He saw flames, he heard screams. He felt the weight of a child in his arms, soot on her face, terror in her eyes, her small hands clutching his neck as he ran through smoke and gunfire, and the death of everything she had known. He had saved one, just one. A girl of 15, barely more than a child, and he had left her at the forest's edge because he had to go back, had to try to save more, had to do something to stop what he had helped to start. When he returned to that spot an hour later, she was gone. He had assumed she died somewhere in the wilderness, alone and afraid, another ghost to add to the 47 others who haunted his sleep. But she hadn't died. She had survived, and now she had come back. The woman's knees buckled. Sam moved without thinking, crossing the distance in 3 long strides, catching her before she hit the ground. Her skin burned with fever. Her breathing came shallow and rapid. Her body felt light in his arms, scraped thin by miles of running and days without food. "Ethan," Sam said, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. "Get water. Get bandages. Move." The boy ran. Sam carried her through the doorway into the cabin's dim interior. The air inside held the scent of wood smoke and sage, of coffee and leather, of a life lived alone. He laid her on his bed, the only bed, adjusting the wool blanket around her shoulders with a gentleness that surprised him. Up close, he could see the full story written across her body. Rope burns at her wrists, raw and deep, the kind that came from metal shackles worn for months or years, cuts along her thighs, crusted with dust and infection. The bruises were fresh, purple and yellow, mapping a brutal journey from somewhere terrible to here. But it was the scar on her left wrist that made Sam's jaw tighten. A perfect circle, deep and old, the unmistakable mark of an iron cuff locked tight and never removed gently. He had seen such scars before, on men in prison camps, on slaves before the war ended them, on people who had been owned. Her eyes fluttered open, even exhausted, even fevered. They were alert, watchful. The eyes of someone who had learned that survival meant never fully sleeping, never fully trusting, never fully letting go. "Drink," Sam said softly, sliding an arm behind her shoulders to raise her. Ethan appeared with a tin cup filled from the water barrel. The woman drank, though her hands trembled too much to hold the cup herself. When the water eased the tightness in her throat, she sank back onto the pillow, studying Sam's face as if measuring the truth she found there. "You live alone out here," she whispered. Sam nodded once. The valley stretched for miles before touching any settlement. He had chosen this place because solitude punished a man better than any judge could. The wind, the silence, the long empty days. They carved out everything inside him except memory, and some memories refused to fade. Her gaze wandered around the room. A table with a half-carved piece of cedar, a rifle hung on the wall, a single chair pulled close to the cold hearth. Nothing to suggest warmth or family, just the life of a man who kept to himself in an unforgiving land. "I didn't know if you'd still be alive," she said, her voice thin. "I followed the river, the hills, what I remembered." What she remembered. Sam looked away, jaw tightening. He had saved a child once, small and soot-covered, clutching his neck while flames clawed at the skin. He had never expected to see her grown, never expected she would come looking for him. "Rest," he said, standing. "You're safe here." But the woman didn't close her eyes. She watched him move about the room, watched how his shoulders carried weight that had nothing to do with work, how each breath seemed measured and deliberate. "Why do you live so far from everyone?" she asked. Sam paused at the water barrel. The question struck deeper than she could have known. Some places are quiet enough that a man can hear himself think. He didn't admit that he had come here to bury himself, not to heal. He didn't say he feared what he would hear if he ever stopped running from his own guilt. Those truths were not for her. Not yet. Outside, cicadas hummed against the heat. Inside, a new silence settled, softer this time, as if her presence, battered as it was, had shifted something in the air of the lonely cabin. The woman's eyelids lowered at last. Sam watched her breathe, shallow but steady, and for the first time in years, he felt the quiet change shape. Less like punishment, more like possibility. Ethan stood in the doorway, wide-eyed and uncertain. Sam gestured for him to come close. "Who is she?" the boy whispered. "Someone from a long time ago," Sam said. "Someone I thought was dead." "She going to be okay?" Sam looked at the woman sleeping in his bed, at the scars and bruises, and the fierce determination that had brought her all this way. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but we're going to try." The fever eased by morning, though the sun had barely climbed over the red mesas. Sam had not slept. He sat in the wooden chair beside the bed, rifle across his lap, watching the woman's chest rise and fall. Ethan had finally dozed off in the loft, but Sam could not let himself rest. Not yet. Not until he knew she would survive the night. As pale light spilled across the cabin floorboards, catching on the dust motes hanging in the still air, the woman stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the unfamiliar space. She pushed herself up on one elbow, wincing as the movement pulled at her injured shoulder. Sam stood carefully, not wanting to startle her. "Don't move too much," he said. "The wound is fresh." She looked at him for a long moment, then around the cabin again, as if confirming in daylight what she had seen through fever. Her gaze stopped on a small cedar box on the table, its lid half open, revealing the edge of something dark and charred. "You kept that," she said quietly. Sam followed her eyes to the box. Inside lay a single bead, blackened by fire, attached to a broken string. He had found it clutched in the girl's hand 5 years ago when he set her down at the forest's edge. It was the only thing that survived Red Cliff Canyon besides her. "It survived," Sam said. "I didn't know why I held on to it." But he did know. Holding that charred bead had been the one power that kept him from ending his life after the massacre. Proof that one child, one trembling life, had made it out because of him. Not redemption, but something. A reason to wake up each morning. The woman's hand moved to her wrist, touching the circular scar there. "You want to know what happened?" she said. Not a question, a statement. "Only if you want to tell it," Sam replied. She was quiet for a while, gathering strength or courage or both. When she spoke, her voice was steady, the voice of someone who had learned to survive by facing truth head on. "My name is Ayana," she said. "It means eternal blossom. My mother gave it to me." Sam nodded. "Samuel Garrison. People call me Sam." "I know," she said. "I've said your name more times than I should have. It was the only thing that kept me going some days. Knowing that somewhere the man who saved me was still alive." Sam felt something crack inside him, some wall he had built to keep feeling at bay. He sat back down in the chair, suddenly tired in a way that had nothing to do with lost sleep. "After you left me in the forest," Ayana continued, "I ran. For 2 weeks I ran. I ate roots and drank from streams. I slept in hollow logs. I thought if I could just get far enough away, I could forget what I saw that night." She paused, her fingers still tracing the scar on her wrist. "Then they found me. 3 men on horseback. One of them was named Clayton Vance." Sam's head snapped up. The name meant nothing to him, but the way she said it, the way her voice went cold and flat, told him everything he needed to know. "Vance recognized me," Ayana said. "He knew I was from Red Cliff Canyon. He knew I was a survivor. And that made me dangerous to him." "Why?" "Why?" Sam asked. "Because he planned it. The massacre. All of it." The words hung in the air like smoke. Sam sat perfectly still, trying to process what she had just said. "Planned it?" Ayana nodded. "There was gold in the canyon, buried deep in the cliffs. Vance found it 4 years before the attack. But the land belonged to my people. By treaty. By law. He couldn't take it. So he made us look dangerous." Sam's hands clenched into fists. He knew where this was going. He had lived it, unknowing 5 years ago. "He fed lies to the army," Ayana continued. "Said our camp was hiding weapons. Said we were planning attacks on settlements. He gave them false evidence. Letters, reports. All of it manufactured. And the army believed him," Sam said quietly. "The army sent you," Ayana replied. "You and 40 others. You thought you were stopping a threat. But there was no threat. Just families. Just people trying to live." Sam stood abruptly, walking to the window. His reflection stared back at him in the glass, older and harder than the man who had ridden into Red Cliff Canyon that night. He had suspected, even then, that something was wrong. The lack of weapons, the presence of children and elders, the confusion on their faces when the soldiers opened fire. But he had been following orders. He had been doing his duty. And by the time he realized the truth, 47 people were dead and the canyon was burning. "I'm sorry," he said, the words inadequate and hollow. "I know," Ayana said. "I saw it in your eyes that night. You didn't want this. You tried to stop it. You saved me." I saved one person, Sam said bitterly. 47 died. One is more than none. Sam turned back to face her. What happened after Vance found you? Iana's expression hardened. He took me to a place in the Superstition Mountains, a mining camp. He kept me there for 5 years, along with others he had taken. We worked the gold from the canyon, the gold he stole from my people. The circular scar on her wrist suddenly made terrible sense. Sam had seen mining operations before. He knew how they treated labor they considered expendable. I tried to escape 4 times, Iana said. The first time they caught me after 3 days, beat me so badly I couldn't walk for a week. The second time, I almost made it to the border. But Wade Brennan, one of Vance's men, brought me back. The third time I wasn't alone. There was another girl, younger than me. Vance killed her in front of me to make a point. Sam's jaw clenched so tight it ached. The fourth time was 6 months ago, Iana continued. They caught me at the Mexican border. Vance said if I tried again, he would kill me slowly. So I waited, I learned, I watched. And 3 weeks ago, Vance got drunk. He forgot to lock the door to the barracks. I knocked out the guard, stole a horse, and ran. They've been following you, Sam said, for 18 days. I've stayed ahead of them. Barely. But I knew if I could find you, if I could reach this valley, I might have a chance. Why me? Sam asked. You could have gone anywhere. Iana met his eyes. Because you're the only person who ever showed me kindness. Because I needed to know if the man who saved me was still a good man. And because I had nowhere else to go. The honesty of it struck Sam like a physical blow. He had spent 5 years believing he was a monster, that his actions at Red Cliff Canyon defined him forever. But this woman who had every reason to hate him had walked across the Arizona territory to find him, to trust him. Before he could respond, a sound cut through the morning stillness. Hoofbeats, distant but unmistakable. 3 horses, maybe 4, moving at a steady pace from the North Ridge. Sam grabbed his telescope and moved to the window. Through the brass cylinder, he saw them. 3 riders, still 2 miles out but closing. They moved with purpose, not haste. Men who knew where they were going and had no doubt about what they would find when they got there. He lowered the telescope and looked at Iana. Her face had gone pale, but her eyes were steady. They found me, she said. Get dressed, Sam said. Ethan! The boy appeared at the edge of the loft, sleep still in his eyes. Sir? Get down here. Now. Ethan scrambled down the ladder. Sam moved to the wall where his weapons hung. The Winchester rifle, well-oiled and loaded with 15 rounds of .44 caliber ammunition. The Colt pistol, 6 rounds in the cylinder. The double-barreled shotgun, loaded with buckshot. He had maintained these weapons meticulously for 5 years, cleaning them every week, practicing his aim on targets set up in the valley. Not because he expected trouble, because trouble always came eventually, and a man who wasn't prepared was a man who died stupid. What's happening? Ethan asked, fear creeping into his voice. Men are coming, Sam said calmly. Bad men. They want to take Miss Iana back to a bad place. We're not going to let that happen. He handed the boy a box of ammunition. You know where the root cellar is? Ethan nodded. If I tell you to run, you go there. You hide. You don't come out until I come get you. Understand? But, understand? Yes, sir. Sam turned to Iana, who had managed to stand despite the pain. She was steadier than he expected, driven by something stronger than physical strength. Can you shoot? He asked. I can try. He showed her the Colt pistol, demonstrated how to aim, how to breathe, how to squeeze the trigger instead of pulling it. She listened carefully, her hands steadier than they had any right to be. You stay by the window, Sam said. If they get past me, you shoot. Don't hesitate. Don't ask questions. Just shoot. Where will you be? Outside, at the fence line. I want to see them coming. Iana grabbed his arm. Sam, there are 3 of them. I know. Vance is smart, and he's cruel. He won't fight fair. Neither will I. Sam positioned Ethan in the loft with instructions to stay low and quiet. He gave Iana the pistol and showed her where to stand for the best angle of fire. Then he picked up the Winchester, checked the action one final time, and stepped out onto the porch. The sun had climbed higher now, bright and merciless. The riders were closer, maybe a mile out. Sam could see them clearly without the telescope. Three men on horseback, moving at an easy trot, confident, unhurried. He walked to the fence line and stood there, rifle held loosely in both hands, waiting. The valley stretched out before him, silent except for the wind moving through the cottonwoods and the distant cry of a hawk circling overhead. The riders came on. At 200 yards, they slowed. At 100, they stopped. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then one of the men dismounted and walked forward alone. He was tall and lean, dressed in a black suit, dusty from travel. His hair was silver, combed back from a face that might have been handsome once, but had gone hard and cold over the years. He wore a badge on his vest, the kind issued to town council members in territorial settlements. Sam had never seen this man before in his life, but he knew him instantly, knew him the way prey knows a predator, the way darkness knows its opposite. Clayton Vance stopped 10 feet from the fence. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Garrison," he said. "It's been a long time," Sam said nothing. He had learned that silence was a weapon, that the man who spoke first often spoke too much. Vance's smile widened. "You don't remember me, do you? Ford Apache, spring of 1870. I offered you a partnership, a chance to make real money. You turned me down, said you didn't do business while wearing the uniform." The memory came back slowly. A man with blonde hair, younger then, approaching Sam outside the enlisted barracks. An offer of some kind. Sam had refused without much thought. He refused a lot of offers in those days. "I remember," Sam said. "You should have taken that deal, Sam. We could have been rich men. Instead, you chose honor. And look where it got you. Living alone in a valley that leads nowhere, with nothing to show for 20 years of service, but a pile of regrets." "What do you want, Vance?" "I want what's mine, the girl. She ran from me, from my property. I'm here to take her back." "She's not property. The law says otherwise." Vance pulled a folded paper from his jacket. "Indenture contract, signed by Sheriff Graham of Prescott in 1870. Perfectly legal under territorial statute. The Apache girl known as Ayana is bound to my service for a period of 10 years in exchange for food, shelter, and protection." "That's a lie. It's a document, witnessed and filed. If you harbor her, you're guilty of obstructing a legal contract. That's a crime, Sam, and crimes have consequences." Sam's finger moved to the trigger guard of the Winchester. Not threatening yet, just ready. "Sheriff Graham died in 72, Sam said. "Can't verify a signature from a dead man." "No," Vance agreed, "but Judge Morrison in Prescott is very much alive, and he's a personal friend of mine. If you want to challenge this in court, be my guest. But you'll lose. And by the time you figure that out, the girl will be back where she belongs." Behind Sam, from inside the cabin, he heard a window open slightly. Ayana, listening, ready. "There's another option," Vance continued. "You give her to me now, peacefully, and I ride away. No trouble for you, no legal complications. You go back to your quiet life, and we all forget this happened. And if I refuse?" Vance's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes, something cold and final. "Then I'll take her anyway, and you'll die trying to stop me, along with whoever else is in that cabin. Is that what you want, Sam? More blood on your hands?" Sam felt the words hit like bullets. Vance knew. Somehow he knew about Red Cliff Canyon, knew about the guilt Sam carried, knew exactly where to strike to cause the most damage. "You set it up," Sam said quietly. "The massacre. You fed them lies. I gave them what they wanted, a threat, an enemy, something to justify what they were already planning to do. The army was looking for an excuse to clear that canyon. I just provided one. You killed 47 people for gold. I created an opportunity for profit. Those people were in the way. And you, Sam, you led the soldiers right to them. You pulled the trigger. You set the fires. All I did was point you in the right direction." The truth of it was like acid in Sam's veins. He had been used, manipulated, turned into a weapon by a man he didn't even remember meeting. "You used my scouting reports," Sam said. "Every single one. Very thorough, by the way. Made my job much easier." "And my family?" Vance tilted his head, genuinely curious. "Your family?" "My wife, my daughter, the accident." Understanding dawned on Vance's face, followed by something that might have been amusement. "Ah, Rebecca and little Emma. Beautiful woman, your wife. Smart, too. Too smart. She started asking questions after Redcliffe, started investigating, found some documents she shouldn't have seen. I couldn't have that. Sam's world narrowed to a single point, the man standing before him. The man who had orchestrated everything, who had killed his family, who had turned him into a murderer and then laughed about it. The Winchester came up smooth and fast, but Vance was already moving, diving to the side as Sam's shot cracked across the valley. The bullet passed through the space where Vance had been standing and buried itself in the dirt beyond. The two men still on horseback drew their weapons. One tall and thin, the other broad and scarred. Wade Brennan and Pike Sullivan. Sam had never met them, but Ayanna's descriptions were enough. Wade fired first. His bullet punched through the fence rail 2 inches from Sam's shoulder. Sam dropped and rolled, coming up behind the water trough as more shots followed. Wood splintered, metal rang. From the cabin window, Ayanna fired the Colt. Her shot went wide, but it made Pike's horse rear, spoiling his aim. His return fire hit the cabin wall, nowhere near the window. Sam levered another round into the Winchester and fired. Wade's hat flew off his head. The man cursed and dropped from his saddle, scrambling for cover behind a cluster of boulders. Vance had reached his horse and was pulling a rifle from the saddle scabbard. Sam fired again, hitting the horse instead of the man. The animal screamed and went down, pinning Vance's leg beneath it. Pike Sullivan charged forward on horseback, firing wild. Sam took careful aim and shot him through the shoulder. Pike tumbled backward out of the saddle, landing hard and lying motionless, knocked unconscious by the fall and the shock of the wound. 2 down, 1 trapped, but Wade was still firing from the boulders, and he was good. Too good. His bullets chewed up the water trough, forcing Sam to stay low. Then Ayanna fired again. This time her bullet found Wade's arm. He jerked back with a shout, his rifle falling from nerveless fingers. Sam stood and crossed the open ground in 5 long strides. He reached Wade's position before the man could recover, drove the butt of the Winchester into his face and knocked him cold. He turned to check on Vance, but the older man had worked himself free from the dead horse. He stood now, 20 feet away, his own rifle aimed at the cabin. "Call her out, Sam," Vance said, "or I put a bullet through that window and we see what happens." Sam raised the Winchester, but Vance shook his head. "You shoot me, I shoot her. Mexican standoff. How about we talk instead, Tay?" "I'm done talking." "Then let me tell you a story," Vance said, "about a soldier who thought he was serving his country, who followed orders like a good little dog, who found out too late that he was just a tool, a weapon aimed by men smarter than him. That soldier went home and found his family dead, killed by the same man who used him to slaughter innocents. Now that soldier has a choice. He can die here protecting a girl who means nothing to him, or he can walk away. Let me take what's mine, and maybe, just maybe, find some peace in knowing he didn't add 2 more bodies to the pile he's already buried." Sam's finger was on the trigger. 1 squeeze, 1 bullet. He could end this. But Vance's rifle was pointed at the cabin window where Ayanna stood. If Sam fired, Vance might fire too, might kill her with his last breath. The standoff held for 3 heartbeats. 4, 5. Then Sam heard something that didn't belong. A sound cutting through the tension like a knife through canvas. Faint at first, distant, but growing. The thunder of hooves. Not 3 horses walking steady. 1 horse, running hard, desperate, driven beyond endurance. Coming from the north ridge. Vance heard it too. His eyes flickered toward the sound for just a fraction of a second. His rifle barrel dipped an inch. No more. It was enough. A voice rang out, hoarse with pain and urgency. "Vance, put it down!" An Apache rider crested the ridge, his horse lathered with sweat and foam, its legs trembling with exhaustion. The man in the saddle had blood soaking through his shirt, but he held a rifle steady in one hand, reins gripped white-knuckled in the other. The horse stumbled 50 yards from the cabin, its legs finally giving out. The rider threw himself clear, rolled across the hard ground, came up on his knees with the rifle still gripped tight. Vance turned, distracted for just a second. It was enough. Sam fired. The bullet took Vance in the shoulder, spinning him around. The older man's rifle discharged into the dirt as he fell. The Apache rider reached them, Sliding from his saddle and nearly collapsing, Ayanna burst from the cabin, running despite her injuries, catching the young man before he hit the ground. "Dakota," she sobbed. "You're alive." "Ayanna," the man whispered. "I found you. Finally." Sam stood over Vance, rifle trained on the wounded man. Wade was still unconscious. Pike wasn't moving. The valley had gone quiet again except for Ayanna's tears and Dakota's labored breathing. It was over, but as Sam looked at Ayanna holding her kinsman, at Ethan emerging cautiously from the cabin, at the three men lying defeated in his yard, he knew it wasn't over at all. It was only beginning. Sam bound Vance's hands with rope, tight enough to hold but not tight enough to stop the blood flow. The man deserved worse, but Sam wasn't going to become the kind of person who tortured his enemies, no matter what they had done. That line still mattered. It was one of the few lines he had left. Wade Brennan remained unconscious, breathing but broken. Pike Sullivan had come around but lay still, his eyes watching everything with the wariness of a man who knew he was beaten. Sam tied them both anyway. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. Inside the cabin, Ayanna knelt beside the young Apache warrior she had called Dakota. The man was in bad shape. A bullet wound in his shoulder, another in his side, both still bleeding despite the rough bandaging he had done himself. His skin had gone pale, his breathing shallow. He didn't have much time. Sam had seen enough men die to recognize the signs, but he had also seen enough men survive against impossible odds to know that giving up was the same as killing them yourself. He knelt on the other side of Dakota and began cutting away the bloody shirt. "Ethan," Sam said, "water, clean cloth, whiskey from the cabinet." The boy moved fast, gathering supplies without question. He had learned not to hesitate in a crisis. That was good. That would keep him alive when Sam was gone. The bullet in Dakota's shoulder had passed clean through, painful but not fatal if they could stop the infection. The one in his side was worse, still lodged against bone, surrounded by bruised flesh, impossible internal bleeding. Sam had dug out bullets before, but never from someone in this condition. The shock alone might kill him. "Dakota," Ayanna said softly, holding his hand, "you need to stay awake. Stay with me." The young man's eyes focused on her face. "I've been looking," he whispered. 5 years. I never stopped." "I know. I'm here now. You found me. Had to warn you." Dakota's breath hitched. "Vance, he's coming." "He already came," Ayanna said. Sam stopped him. Dakota's gaze shifted to Sam. Even through the pain, there was intelligence in those eyes. Assessment, judgment. "You're Garrison." "I am." "She talked about you, the soldier who saved her." "I should have saved more." "You saved the one who mattered most." Dakota coughed and blood flecked his lips. "Not good. Internal bleeding, maybe from a punctured lung. Listen, there's something you need to know. About that night. About Vance." "Save your strength," Sam said. "We can talk after." "No." Dakota grabbed Sam's wrist with surprising force. "You need to know now, before he gets away with it." Sam glanced at Ayanna. She nodded, her face grim. Whatever Dakota had to say, it was important enough that he was using his last strength to say it. "Talk," Sam said, "but slowly. Let me work while you do." He poured whiskey over the wound in Dakota's side. The young man hissed through his teeth, but didn't cry out. Sam probed carefully with clean fingers, feeling for the bullet. There, lodged against the 8th rib, not as deep as he feared. "Vance didn't just want the gold," Dakota said. "That was part of it. But he had another reason for the massacre." "What reason?" Sam asked, though part of him didn't want to know. Didn't want to hear that there was more to the nightmare than simple greed. "Revenge against you." Sam's hand stopped moving. "Against me? I didn't even know him." "He knew you. In 1870, he approached you with a business proposition, something illegal. You turned him down, reported him to your commanding officer." The memory surfaced slowly. A man offering to sell army supplies on the black market. Rifles, ammunition, horse tack. Sam had refused and mentioned it to Captain Hendricks the next day. The captain had said he would look into it. Sam never heard anything more about it and assumed the matter was dropped. "I didn't report him," Sam said. "I mentioned it to my captain, that's all." "Your captain started an investigation," Dakota continued. "Vance lost a contract worth $10,000. lost his connections in the quartermaster corps, lost everything he had built over 3 years. That's not my fault. Vance didn't see it that way. He saw a self-righteous soldier who ruined him over nothing. He swore he would make you pay, make you feel what he felt. Loss, humiliation, guilt. Sam's jaw tightened. He went back to probing the wound, found the edge of the bullet, began working it free with a pair of clean forceps. Dakota grunted but held still. "How do you know this?" Sam asked. "I was at his camp, in the mountains. For 2 months I watched. I listened. I learned." Dakota's eyes closed briefly, then opened again with effort. Vance drinks when he thinks he's alone. He talks to himself, tells the whole story like he's proud of it. Ayanna squeezed Dakota's hand. "You went there to find me. I couldn't leave you with him, not after everything." The bullet came free with a wet sound. Sam dropped it into a tin cup, then packed the wound with a clean cloth soaked in whiskey. Dakota gasped, his whole body going rigid, but he didn't pass out. Strong, stronger than most men Sam had known. "Tell me the rest," Sam said. "All of it." Dakota took several shallow breaths before continuing. "Vance found the gold deposit in Red Cliff Canyon in 1869. He tried to buy the land, but it was protected by treaty. He tried to bribe tribal leaders, but they refused. So he decided to take it by force. But he needed a reason, a justification. The attack," Sam said. "He manufactured evidence. Fake letters from Apache leaders. Stolen rifles planted near the canyon. Reports of missing cattle. All of it was lies, but he made it look real. Then he fed it to the army through channels that couldn't be traced back to him." Sam's hands were shaking now. He forced them steady. And the army believed it. Why wouldn't they? There had been conflicts before. Raids, skirmishes. Vance just made it look like another one. Bigger, more dangerous, worth a full military response. "But why involve me specifically?" "Because you were the best scout in the region. Everyone said so. If Samuel Garrison confirmed the threat, no one would question it. And when you led the attack, when you pulled the trigger on innocent people, Vance knew it would destroy you, knew you would carry that guilt for the rest of your life." The words landed like physical blows. Sam sat back on his heels, staring at nothing. He had been used, turned into a weapon, aimed at innocent people by a man who wanted revenge for a slight Sam barely remembered. 47 dead, because of gold, because of pride, because Sam had tried to do the right thing 5 years earlier. "Your wife found out," Dakota said quietly. Sam's head snapped up. "What?" "Rebecca Garrison. She started investigating after you came home from Red Cliff. She was smart. She noticed things didn't add up. The timeline, the evidence, the speed of the military response. She started asking questions. She never told me. She wanted to be sure first, wanted proof. She found some of Vance's correspondence with Colonel Creed, letters discussing payment for services rendered. She was going to take it to the territorial marshal. But she died first, Sam said, his voice hollow. She was killed first, Dakota corrected. I found evidence at Vance's camp, a letter from a hired man named Jessup. He specialized in making accidents look real. Vance paid him $500 to fix Rebecca's wagon axle so it would break on the mountain pass. Your daughter died because she was there. Collateral damage. Sam stood abruptly and walked to the window. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The room was too small, the air too thick. Everything he had believed about Rebecca's death, about the accident that took her and Emma, all of it was a lie. They had been murdered, killed to protect Vance's secret, killed because Rebecca had been trying to prove Sam's innocence, to show that he wasn't responsible for Red Cliff Canyon. She had died trying to save his soul, and he had never known. Behind him, Ethan stood frozen, eyes wide with shock. The boy had never heard this story, never knew the full weight of what Sam carried. Mr. Sam, Ethan said softly. Sam didn't turn around. Go outside, check on the prisoners. But now, the boy went, though reluctantly. Sam waited until the door closed before he allowed himself to feel it. The rage, the grief, the crushing weight of 5 years of unnecessary guilt. compounded now by the knowledge that his family's deaths could have been prevented if he had just been paying attention. Ayanna stood and came to him. She didn't touch him, didn't speak, just stood beside him, sharing the silence, two people who had lost everything to the same monster. "There's more," Dakota said from the bed. His voice was weaker now, fading. "In my saddlebag. Papers. Evidence. Everything you need to prove what Vance did." Sam turned. "What kind of evidence?" "Letters, financial records, the forged indenture contract he used on Ayanna, and something else." Dakota's breath was coming harder now. "A map of the gold deposit, signed by Vance, dated 6 months before the massacre, with my uncle's handprint on it." "Your uncle?" Ayanna asked. "Your father." Dakota looked at her, and something passed between them. Some knowledge that Sam couldn't interpret. "He found the map after Vance surveyed the canyon. He took it, thinking it would protect our people. Proof that outsiders were encroaching on protected land. He hid it before he died. I found it last month, buried near his grave." "Why would there be a handprint?" Sam asked. "Because he was dying when he hid it. Shot by one of Vance's men during the attack. He pressed his bloody hand against the paper. His last act, making sure someone would know the truth." Ayanna's face had gone pale. "Father knew. He knew they were coming. He tried to warn everyone, but there wasn't enough time, and no one believed him. They thought he was being paranoid." Dakota coughed again, harder this time. "More blood. I'm sorry, Ayanna. I should have told you sooner about Father, about everything." "Told me what?" Dakota reached for her hand. His fingers were cold now, losing warmth. "That he was my father too. Not just my uncle. My father." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the wind outside seemed to hold its breath. "What are you saying?" Ayanna whispered. "Father had 2 wives. My mother died when I was young. He married your mother 2 years later. We grew up together, but he never told you. Wanted to protect you from tribal politics, from jealousy. He told me the truth the night he died. Made me promise to protect you, to find you if anything happened." Tears ran down Ayanna's face. "You're my brother. I'm your brother, and I failed you. Let them take you. Let you suffer for 5 years while I searched. You didn't fail me. You found me. You came. Too late. Always too late." Dakota's eyes were closing. "Sam, promise me. Protect her. Keep her safe." Sam crossed the room and knelt beside the bed. "I promise, I'm on. And make Vance pay. Not with a bullet. That's too easy. Make him face what he did. In court. In public. Make everyone know. I will." Dakota's hand found Ayanna's face, touching her cheek. "Goodbye, little sister. Father would be proud. You survived. You're strong. Don't leave me," Ayanna sobbed. "Not now, not when I just found you." But Dakota was already gone. His chest rose once more, then stilled. His hand fell to the bed. The light in his eyes faded like a candle going out. Ayanna collapsed against him, her grief raw and terrible. Sam stepped back, giving her space, giving her privacy and her pain. Ethan had come back inside and stood in the doorway, tears streaming down his own face. The boy had seen death before, but never like this. Never someone dying to save someone they loved. Sam went to the saddlebag Dakota had mentioned. It lay by the door where the young man had dropped it when he fell. Inside, Sam found what had been promised. Letters, dozens of them, correspondence between Vance and Colonel Creed, discussing payment schedules and contingency plans. Financial ledgers showing income from an unlisted mining operation. And the forged indenture contract, complete with a signature that even Sam could tell was fake. At the bottom of the bag, wrapped in oiled cloth, was the map. Hand-drawn, detailed, showing the canyon and the gold deposit buried in its cliffs. Clayton Vance's signature was clear in the bottom corner, dated April 1870, 4 months before the massacre. And there in the upper right corner was the handprint, brown with age, unmistakable. A man's hand, pressed down hard, leaving the mark of every finger, every crease, a dying man's testimony. Sam carried the papers to the table and spread them out. This was it. Proof, evidence that would stand up in any court. Enough to hang Clayton Vance and everyone who had helped him. But first they had to survive the next few hours. because Vance wasn't going to go quietly. And men like Wade Brennan didn't care about evidence or truth. They cared about survival. And survival meant eliminating witnesses. Sam went back outside. The three prisoners were where he had left them, bound and guarded by the threat of the rifles. Vance sat against the fence, his shoulder roughly bandaged, his eyes watching Sam with cold calculation. "You found Dakota's evidence," Vance said. It wasn't a question. "I did." "Then you know it doesn't matter. Evidence can be disputed. Witnesses can be discredited. I have friends in high places, judges, marshals, politicians. You're just a washed-up scout living in the middle of nowhere. Who do you think they'll believe?" "They'll believe the truth." Vance laughed. It was a dry, bitter sound. "The truth? The truth is whatever people with power say it is. You should have learned that by now." "Maybe, but I'm still going to try." "Then you're a fool, and you'll die a fool's death." Sam crouched down so he was eye level with Vance. "You killed my wife, my daughter, 47 Apache men, women, and children. You destroyed lives for golden pride, and you're going to answer for it." "Am I?" Vance leaned forward as much as his bonds allowed. "Let me tell you what's going to happen, Garrison. You'll take me to Prescott. You'll present your evidence. Judge Morrison will review it and find inconsistencies, questions, doubts. He'll rule it inadmissible. The case will be dismissed, and I'll walk free." "You seem very sure." "I am sure, because I've been building this protection for 5 years. Every official in 3 counties owes me favors. Every lawman has looked the other way at least once. You can't touch me." "We'll see." Sam stood and walked back to the cabin. Inside, Ayanna had composed herself. She sat beside Dakota's body, holding his hand, singing something soft in Apache. A death song, Sam guessed. He didn't interrupt. Ethan was sitting at the table, looking at the evidence. The boy's face was troubled. "Mr. Sam," he said quietly, "do you really think this will work, taking him to court?" "I don't know," Sam admitted, "but it's the right thing to do." "What if he's right? What if his friends protect him?" "Then we'll find another way." "What other way?" Sam didn't have an answer for that. The truth was, he didn't know what they would do if the legal system failed them. He only knew that putting a bullet in Vance's head, however satisfying it might be, would make Sam no better than the men he was fighting. There had to be a better way, a way that honored the dead instead of adding to their number. Ayanna finished her song and stood. She looked at Sam with eyes that had gone hard and determined. "We take him to Prescott," she said. "We make him face justice, for Dakota, for your family, for my people. It might not work. Then we make it work, however we have to." Sam nodded. "We leave at first light. Wade and Pike can ride if they're able. Vance rides bound to his saddle. Ethan, you stay here. Guard the cabin." "But I want to help," the boy protested. "You will help by staying alive, by keeping this place safe while we're gone. Can you do that?" Ethan's jaw set with determination. "Yes, sir." "Good. Ayanna, you need rest. Your wounds will heal on the road. I'm not staying behind either." Sam wanted to argue, but he saw the look in her eyes, the same look he had seen when she first arrived at his fence. Determination that would not be denied. She had survived 5 years of hell to get here. She had earned the right to see this through. "All right," he said, "but we do this smart. We don't take chances. We don't give Vance any opportunity to escape or turn the tables." "Agreed?" "Agreed." They spent the rest of the daylight preparing. Sam checked the horses, making sure they could handle the 40-mile ride to Prescott. He packed supplies, water, dried meat, ammunition. He cleaned and oiled the rifles again, loaded every weapon they had. Ayanna prepared Dakota's body for burial. She wrapped him in blankets, arranged his weapons beside him according to Apache tradition. Sam helped her carry him to a spot on the hill overlooking the valley, where the sunrise would touch the grave first each morning. They dug in silence. The earth was hard and rocky, but the work felt necessary, important. Every shovelful was a prayer, a promise that Dakota's sacrifice would not be forgotten. When the grave was deep enough, they lowered the body carefully. Ayanna sang again, words Sam didn't understand but felt in his bones. Then she placed the necklace her mother had made, the one whose bead Sam had saved, on her brother's chest. Thank you, she said to Sam, for keeping this, for remembering. It was all I had left of that night, Sam said. The only good thing. You saved more than a bead. You saved me. And through me, you gave Dakota peace. He died knowing I was safe. They filled the grave as the sun set. Orange and gold light painted the valley, turning everything soft and beautiful. A hawk circled overhead, riding the thermals. The wind carried the scent of sage and creosote. When it was done, they stood in silence. Two people who had lost everything and somehow found each other. Sam wanted to say something meaningful, something that would ease the weight they both carried. But words seemed inadequate, hollow. So he just stood beside her, and that seemed to be enough. They returned to the cabin as darkness fell. Sam checked the prisoners one last time. All three were conscious now, though Pike looked fevered and Wade's jaw was swelling from where Sam had hit him. Vance watched Sam with eyes that never stopped calculating, never stopped looking for an opening. "You're making a mistake," Vance said. Sam didn't respond. He went inside, barred the door, and positioned himself where he could watch the windows. Ayanna sat at the table, cleaning the cold pistol Sam had given her. Her movements were precise, confident. She had learned quickly. Ethan climbed to the loft but didn't sleep. Sam could hear him moving around up there, restless with fear and excitement and the weight of knowledge that came too young. The night stretched out long and dark. Sam dozed in shifts, never fully sleeping, always aware of the men outside and the danger they represented. Around midnight, he heard voices. Vance and Wade talking in low tones. He couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear enough. Planning. Scheming. Let them plan, Sam thought. Plans meant nothing if you couldn't execute them. At 3 in the morning, something changed. The quality of the silence shifted. Sam's eyes opened fully, hand moving to the rifle beside his chair. He waited, listening. There. The faint scrape of rope against wood. Someone was working at their bonds. Sam stood quietly and moved to the window. In the starlight, he could see Wade's silhouette. The man's hands were free, working at the rope around his ankles. He must have loosened them earlier while pretending to sleep, then waited for the right moment. Sam raised the Winchester and aimed through the window. "Don't," he said quietly. Wade froze, then slowly his hands went back up. "Wise choice," Sam said. "Try that again, and I won't give you a warning." He went outside and retied Wade's bonds, this time checking them with a thoroughness that left no room for escape. The man glared at him with pure hatred, but said nothing. Vance watched the whole interaction with amusement. "You can't stay awake forever, Garrison. Don't need to stay awake forever, just need to stay awake long enough." Back inside, Ayanna was standing, pistol in hand. "Trouble?" "Handled. You should rest. I'll watch. You need sleep more than I do. Your body is still healing." "My body will heal when this is done. Sleep, Sam. I'll wake you if anything changes." He wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling at him like an anchor. He hadn't slept in 36 hours. His eyes burned. His thoughts were getting fuzzy at the edges. If he didn't rest soon, he would make a mistake. And mistakes got people killed. 2 hours, he said. "Then you wake me." 2 hours, she agreed. Sam lay down on the floor near the door, the rifle across his chest. Within minutes, he was asleep, his soldier's training allowing him to drop into rest even in the worst conditions. He dreamed of fire, of screaming, of a child's hand reaching for him through smoke. But this time, when he grabbed that hand and pulled her free, it wasn't Ayanna. It was Emma, his daughter. "Safe. Daddy," she said. "You saved me." "I couldn't save you," he said. "You died. But you saved her. And that matters. That counts." "Does it?" Emma smiled. She looked just like Rebecca. "It's everything, Daddy. It's everything." Sam woke to Ayanna's hand on his shoulder. Sunlight streamed through the window. He had slept longer than 2 hours, much longer. "Why didn't you wake me?" he asked. "You needed rest, and nothing happened. They're still secured." Sam sat up, checking the window. The 3 prisoners were where he had left them, looking tired and uncomfortable, but still contained. The horses were saddled and ready. Ayanna had done it all while he slept. "Thank you," he said. "We're partners in this. Partners take care of each other." Partners. The word felt strange and good at the same time. Sam had been alone for so long that the idea of partnership, of trust, of sharing the burden seemed almost foreign. But here it was, real, offered freely. Yes, he said, we are. They ate a quick breakfast of corn cakes and coffee. Ethan came down from the loft, moving with the stiffness of someone who had barely slept. Sam went over the plan with him again. Stay inside. Keep the shotgun loaded. Don't open the door for anyone except Sam. If trouble came, hide in the root cellar and wait. I'll be fine, Ethan insisted. I can take care of myself. I know you can, but taking care of yourself includes being smart about when to fight and when to hide. Understand? Yes, sir. Sam clasped the boy's shoulder. I'll be back in 3 days, 4 at most. Hold the fort until then. I will. Outside, Sam loaded the prisoners onto their horses. Wade and Pike rode with their hands bound to the saddle horn. Vance, being the most dangerous, rode with his hands bound behind his back and a rope tether connecting his saddle to Sam's. No chance of running. The evidence went into Sam's saddlebag, wrapped in oilcloth to protect it from weather. The rifles went into scabbards, loaded and ready. Water and food for a 2-day ride went into packs tied behind each saddle. As they prepared to leave, Vance spoke one last time. This is your last chance, Garrison. Let me go now, and I'll forget all this. You and the girl can go back to your quiet life. No one has to die. Sam mounted his horse without responding. Ayanna swung up onto her own mount, moving with a grace that belied her injuries. She looked at Vance with contempt. You're going to face what you did, she said, whether you want to or not. They rode out as the sun climbed higher, heading north toward Prescott. Behind them, Ethan stood on the porch, watching until they disappeared over the ridge. Ahead of them lay 40 miles of hard country, a corrupt judge and a justice system that might or might not care about truth. But they rode anyway, because some things were worth fighting for, even when the odds were against you. Some battles had to be fought, even when you weren't sure you could win. And some promises had to be kept, no matter the cost. The ride to Prescott took 2 days through country that wanted them dead. The August heat pressed down like a physical weight, turning the desert into a furnace that baked the breath from their lungs. Water became precious. Shade became salvation. Every mile felt like 3. Sam led the way, rifle across his saddle, eyes constantly scanning the horizon. Ayanna rode beside him, silent but alert. Behind them, the 3 prisoners followed in a line connected by ropes that allowed no independence. Wade Brennan and Pike Sullivan rode in sullen silence, nursing their wounds and their hatred. Clayton Vance rode with the casual confidence of a man who believed rescue was coming. That confidence worried Sam more than anything. Vance wasn't afraid, wasn't even particularly concerned. He acted like a man who knew the game was rigged in his favor, who understood that all he had to do was wait for the right moment and everything would turn his way again. They made camp the first night in a box canyon with good sight lines and only one entrance. Sam posted watch in shifts, taking the first 4 hours himself while Ayanna and the prisoners slept. The stars wheeled overhead in their ancient patterns, indifferent to human suffering, indifferent to questions of justice and revenge. Around midnight, Vance spoke from where he lay, bound near the fire. You know what's waiting for you in Prescott, don't you, Garrison? Sam didn't answer. He had learned that Vance wanted conversation, wanted engagement, and wanted any opportunity to plant seeds of doubt. Silence was the best defense. Judge Morrison has been on my payroll for 3 years, Vance continued. Sheriff Dalton owes me for covering up his son's gambling debts. The territorial prosecutor is my brother-in-law. You're walking into a court where every official answers to me in one way or another. Still, Sam said nothing. And even if by some miracle you get past them, what do you think happens then? You think the army is going to admit they massacred innocent people based on false intelligence? You think Colonel Creed is going to confess he took bribes? They'll close ranks, protect their own, and you'll be the one they sacrifice to make the story go away. Sam poked the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling into the darkness. You could still walk away, Vance said softly. Take the girl, head to California. I'll tell everyone you helped me escape, that you were never involved. You get to keep your life, your freedom, maybe even your conscience, since you tried your best. My conscience isn't for sale, Sam said quietly. Everyone's conscience is for sale, It's just a matter of finding the right price. Sam looked across the fire at Vance. The older man's face was half in shadow, half illuminated by the flames. He looked like a creature from a campfire story, something that only existed in darkness and disappeared in daylight. The difference between you and me, Sam said, is that I know what I've done wrong. I know the blood on my hands, and I'm trying to make it right. You've convinced yourself that none of it matters, that power and money excuse everything. But they don't, and when you stand in front of that judge tomorrow, all your friends and all your bribes won't change what you are. And what am I? A man who killed children for gold. A man who murdered a woman and her daughter to hide his crimes. A man who enslaved and tortured an innocent person for 5 years because she inconvenienced him. That's what you are, and that's what everyone is going to know when I'm done. Vance smiled. It was a cold thing, empty of humor or warmth. We'll see, Garrison. We'll see. The rest of the night passed in silence. At dawn, they broke camp and rode on. The landscape changed as they climbed toward the higher elevations where Prescott sat. Saguaro cactus gave way to juniper and pinon pine. The air grew slightly cooler, though still hot enough to make breathing a labor. They reached the outskirts of town in late afternoon. Prescott was a territorial capital trying to become something more. A collection of wood and adobe buildings arranged along wide dirt streets that turned to mud when it rained. The population was maybe 2,000, mostly miners and ranchers, and the businesses that served them. Saloons, general stores, a bank, a courthouse with territorial offices above it. Sam had been here twice before, both times on army business years ago. He remembered it as a hard town, pragmatic and rough-edged, the kind of place where justice was whatever the man with the most guns said it was. They rode straight to the sheriff's office, drawing stares from people on the street. 3 bound prisoners being led by a scarred man and an Apache woman made for interesting gossip. Sam could hear the whispers starting already. The sheriff's office was a low adobe building with iron bars on the windows and a sign that had faded from years of sun. Sam dismounted and tied his horse to the rail. Ayanna did the same. "Stay here," Sam said to the prisoners. "Don't test me." He pushed through the door into the dim interior. The office smelled of tobacco smoke and old sweat. A man sat behind a desk covered in papers, his feet up, a star pinned to his vest. He was in his 50s, running to fat, with a face that suggested he had seen everything and been impressed by none of it. "Sheriff Dalton?" Sam asked. The man's eyes opened. They were small and calculating, taking in Sam's worn clothes and weathered face, making judgments. "That's me. What do you want?" "I'm bringing in 3 prisoners, 1 for murder, conspiracy, and fraud, the other 2 as accomplices." Dalton's feet came off the desk. "Murder? Who got killed?" 47 Apache men, women, and children, 5 years ago. Red Cliff Canyon. The sheriff's expression changed, not shock, not outrage, just a careful neutrality that told Sam everything he needed to know. This was a man who had heard things, who knew things, who had decided long ago to look the other way. "That's a serious accusation," Dalton said slowly. "You got proof?" "I do, and documents, correspondence, financial records, a map." "And who exactly are you accusing?" "Clayton Vance." The silence that followed was absolute. Dalton stood slowly, his hand moving toward the pistol on his hip. Not threatening yet, just ready. "Clayton Vance is a respected member of this community," Dalton said. "Council member, business owner, philanthropist. You're telling me he's a mass murderer?" "I'm telling you I have evidence that proves it." "Let me see this evidence." Sam had expected this. He pulled a single letter from his jacket, one of the less damaging ones. Enough to establish credibility without revealing everything. Dalton read it, his face showing nothing. "This proves nothing," he said. "It's just a letter discussing business. It's a letter discussing payment for services rendered. Services that included providing false intelligence to the Army. Intelligence that led to the Red Cliff massacre." "That's your interpretation." "It's what the letter says." Dalton handed it back. "I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take your prisoners into custody. I'm going to review your evidence, and I'm going to determine whether there's enough to bring charges. If there is, we'll proceed. If there isn't, I release them and you get charged with false imprisonment and kidnapping. That's not how this works. That's exactly how this works. You're in my town now, friend. My jurisdiction, my rules. Sam felt the situation slipping away. This was what Vance had predicted. Officials closing ranks, the system protecting its own. He needed to change the dynamic, fast. Sheriff, I know you have connections to Vance. I know he's helped you in the past, but this is bigger than friendship. This is bigger than politics. This is about justice for people who can't speak for themselves anymore. I don't know what you're talking about. Your son, James Dalton, gambler, lost $800 at a poker table in Phoenix 2 years ago. Couldn't pay. Men were going to kill him. Clayton Vance paid the debt. In exchange, you look the other way when certain shipments pass through town, when certain questions need to go unasked. Dalton's face went red. You better watch your mouth. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying I understand the position you're in. But you have a choice now. You can do what's right, or you can be part of covering up the murder of 47 innocent people. That choice is going to define you. It's going to define your legacy, and it's going to determine whether you can look at yourself in the mirror for the rest of your life. The two men stared at each other. The moment stretched. Outside, Sam could hear voices, people gathering. Word was spreading fast. Finally, Dalton sighed. Bring them in, the prisoners. I'll lock them up while we sort this out. But I'm telling you right now, this better be solid. Because if you're wrong, if you're lying, I will personally throw you in a cell and lose the key. I'm not wrong. Sam went back outside. A crowd had gathered, maybe 30 people, drawn by curiosity and the promise of drama. Ayanna stood beside the horses, one hand on the pistol at her hip, watching the crowd with wary eyes. Trouble? She asked quietly. Not yet, but it's coming. They dismounted the prisoners and walked them into the sheriff's office. Dalton had opened the cell block in the back, 3 cells with iron bars and thin mattresses. He locked Wade and Pike in one cell, Vance in another. Vance smiled as the door clanged shut. See you soon, Garrison. When I'm a free man and you're the one in chains. Sam ignored him. He turned to Dalton. I want to file formal charges. Today. I want a hearing scheduled as soon as possible. Judge Morrison handles criminal cases. He's out of town until tomorrow. You can file charges then. Where is he? Territorial business. Phoenix. Sam didn't believe it. Morrison was avoiding the situation, giving Vance time to arrange things. But there was nothing Sam could do except wait. Fine, tomorrow morning, first thing. You got a place to stay? Dalton asked. We'll find something. Might want to stay close. People hear you're accusing Clayton Vance. You might not be welcome in some establishments. We'll manage. Sam and Ayanna left the office. The crowd had grown larger, maybe 50 people now. They parted to let Sam and Ayanna through, but the looks weren't friendly. Some were curious, some hostile, a few sympathetic. They found a boarding house on the edge of town run by a widow named Mrs. Chen. She was Chinese, had come to Arizona with the railroad workers 20 years ago, stayed when her husband died. She didn't ask questions, just took Sam's money and showed them to 2 small rooms on the 2nd floor. As they climbed the narrow stairs, wooden steps creaking under their boots, Mrs. Chen spoke over her shoulder. Her English was careful, precise, each word chosen with the deliberation of someone who had learned the language late but learned it well. A young lawyer came through town yesterday, from Denver. He was asking questions about the Red Cliff Canyon case. Sam stopped mid-step. What kind of questions? Whether it was true someone was finally bringing charges, whether there was real evidence this time. She reached the landing and turned to face them. His name was Thomas Whitfield. He seemed different, not like the lawyers who work for the mining companies. Those men have dead eyes. This one's eyes were angry. Did he say what he wanted? Ayanna asked. He said if anyone came to town seeking justice, I should tell them he could help. He's staying at the Grand Hotel. Mrs. Chen unlocked the door to the first room. He told me his sister was murdered 3 years ago by a man with powerful friends. The man walked free. Mr. Whitfield doesn't want to see that happen again. Sam exchanged a glance with Ayanna. It could be legitimate. It could be a trap. In a town where Clayton Vance owned half the officials, trust was a luxury they couldn't afford. Thank you for telling us, Sam said. Mrs. Chen nodded and left them in the hallway. Her footsteps faded down the stairs. Do you believe it? Ayanna asked quietly. I don't know, but if Judge Morrison turns out to be as bought as Vance says, we might not have a choice. Sam spent the evening organizing the evidence. He laid everything out on the bed, creating a timeline, establishing connections, building the case. Financial records showing income from an unlisted mining operation. Letters between Vance and Colonel Creed discussing payment schedules. The forged indenture contract. The map with the bloody handprint. It was solid, undeniable. Any honest judge would see it for what it was. The question was whether Judge Morrison was honest. Ayanna knocked on his door around 8 o'clock. She had bathed and changed into clothes Mrs. Chen had given her, a simple cotton dress that made her look younger and more vulnerable than the warrior woman who had ridden into Sam's life days ago. Can I come in? She asked. Of course, Pepemo. She sat in the room's only chair, studying the papers spread across the bed. Will it be enough? It should be. But you're not sure. Sam sighed. I'm not sure of anything anymore. I thought I was sure 5 years ago when I led those soldiers into Red Cliff Canyon. I was wrong then. Maybe I'm wrong now. You're not wrong about Vance. No, but I might be wrong about the system, about whether justice is even possible in a world where men like Vance can buy judges and sheriffs and prosecutors. Ayanna was quiet for a moment. In my tribe, we had a saying, the wolf doesn't ask the rabbit for permission to hunt, but the wolf also doesn't expect the rabbit to forgive him. Justice isn't about making people forgive. It's about making people see. See what? The truth, what really happened, who someone really is. She gestured to the papers. This makes them see, whether they want to or not. That's its power. Sam wanted to believe her, wanted to think that truth mattered more than power or money or connections. But he had seen too much of the world to be naive. Still, he had to try, had to give Dakota's sacrifice meaning, had to honor Rebecca's attempt to expose the truth, had to prove to Ayanna that some men could still be trusted. Tomorrow, he said, we'll file charges, we'll make them listen. And if they don't, then we'll make them listen another way. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. Sam, thank you for not giving up, for seeing me as a person worth fighting for. You are worth fighting for. You're worth everything. The words surprised them both. Ayanna's eyes widened slightly, and Sam felt heat rising to his face. But neither of them took the words back. They hung in the air between them, true and undeniable. Good night, Sam, Ayanna said softly. Good night. She left. Sam sat on the bed, staring at the evidence that would either free them or doom them. Outside, Prescott settled into its evening rhythms. Saloon music drifted through the open window. Somewhere a dog barked. Life went on, indifferent to the drama about to unfold. Sam slept fitfully that night, plagued by dreams of courtrooms and judges, and Vance walking free while Sam stood in chains. He woke before dawn, dressed quickly, and went downstairs to find Ayanna already waiting in the boarding house parlor. Ready? She asked. As I'll ever be. They ate a quick breakfast of eggs and coffee, then walked through the empty streets to the courthouse. It was a 2-story building, the largest in town, built of brick hauled in from somewhere back east. The territorial offices occupied the 2nd floor. The courtroom and judges' chambers were on the 1st. A clerk sat at a desk near the entrance, a thin man with spectacles and ink-stained fingers. He looked up as they entered. Help you? We're here to file criminal charges, Sam said, against Clayton Vance. The clerk's eyebrows rose. Judge Morrison isn't in yet. When will he arrive? Usually around 9. We'll wait. They sat on a wooden bench in the hallway. 9 o'clock came and went. 9:30. 10. Sam's patience was wearing thin. This was deliberate, a show of power, making them wait to remind them who was in control. At 10:15, Judge Morrison finally arrived. He was a tall man in his 60s, well-dressed in a black suit and string tie, with white hair and a face that suggested he smiled rarely and meant it even less. He swept past them without a word, entered his chambers, and closed the door. The clerk waited a few minutes, then knocked. There was a muffled conversation. The clerk returned. The judge will see you now. Morrison's chambers were lined with law books, their leather spines cracked with age and use. The judge sat behind a massive desk, hands folded, expression neutral. "Mr. Garrison, I presume," he said. "Sheriff Dalton informed me of your accusations. Quite serious, quite extraordinary." "They're true," Sam said. "Truth is a matter of evidence, Mr. Garrison, not conviction." "What evidence do you have?" Sam laid out the documents, one by one. The letters, the financial records, the map. He explained each piece, how it connected, what it proved. Morrison listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. When Sam finished, the judge leaned back in his chair. "Interesting, very interesting. Of course, you understand that much of this could be interpreted in various ways. Correspondence between businessmen isn't inherently criminal. Financial records of an unspecified mining operation don't prove the operation was illegal or obtained through violence." "The timing proves it," Sam insisted. "The map is dated before the massacre. The letters reference payment for services that match exactly with the false intelligence provided to the Army. The pattern is clear." "Pattern is not proof, and the most serious charge that Mr. Vance was responsible for the death of your wife and daughter rests entirely on hearsay from a now-deceased Apache warrior. No witness, no physical evidence, nothing that would stand up in court." Sam felt the walls closing in. "What about Ayanna? She can testify to being held against her will, to the conditions at the mining camp." Morrison's eyes shifted to Ayanna for the first time. "The young lady can testify if she wishes. However, her testimony would be undermined by the indenture contract Mr. Vance possesses, a contract that shows she was legally bound to his service. That contract is forged. Sheriff Graham died in 72. He couldn't have signed it in 70 and witnessed it again in 71, as the document claims. An error in dates, easily explained as a clerical mistake. It's fraud. Perhaps, but proving fraud requires more than suspicion, Mr. Garrison. It requires evidence that would convince 12 men beyond reasonable doubt." Sam's hands clenched into fists. "You're not even trying to consider this fairly." Morrison's expression hardened. "I am considering it very carefully. And what I see is a man with a grudge, questionable evidence, and accusations that would destroy a pillar of this community based on the word of an Apache woman and a dead Indian warrior. Do you understand what that looks like? It looks like justice. It looks like desperation." Sam stood abruptly. "You're already bought. Vance told me you were on his payroll. I didn't want to believe it, but you're proving him right. Sit down, Mr. Garrison." "No, I'm done here. If you leave this office without filing formal charges, you lose the right to bring them later." "Then I'll file. Right now, all of it. Murder, conspiracy, fraud, enslavement, everything." Morrison sighed. "Very well. The court will schedule a preliminary hearing for 1 week from today. Mr. Vance will be represented by counsel. You should secure representation as well, though I doubt you'll find any lawyer in Prescott willing to take this case." "I'll represent myself." "That would be unwise. So is covering up mass murder. But here we are." Sam turned and left, Ayanna following. Out in the hall, she grabbed his arm. "What do we do now?" she asked. "We find another way, because Morrison isn't going to let this go to trial. He's going to dismiss it at the preliminary hearing. Claim insufficient evidence. Set Vance free. Then we stop him before the hearing." "How?" Ayanna's eyes went hard. "There's always a way." They returned to the boarding house to regroup. Sam knew they needed help, someone with authority who couldn't be bought. But who? The sheriff was compromised. The judge was compromised. The prosecutor was Vance's brother-in-law. That afternoon, as Sam sat trying to think of options, there was a knock at his door. He opened it to find a young man in a worn suit holding a leather satchel. "Mr. Garrison, my name is Thomas Whitfield. I'm an attorney, recently arrived from Denver. I heard about your case. Not interested in charity." "I'm not offering charity. I'm offering partnership. I review your evidence. If I think it's solid, I take the case. Pro bono, because I believe in justice." "Why?" "Because 3 years ago, my sister was murdered by a man with connections, a man who bought his way out of consequences. I couldn't help her, but maybe I can help you." Sam studied the young lawyer. He looked earnest, hungry. like someone who still believed the system could work if you pushed hard enough. "Come in," Sam said. Whitfield spent 2 hours reviewing the evidence. He asked sharp questions, made notes, cross-referenced documents. When he finished, he looked up with a grim smile. "This is good, very good, enough to convict in any honest court. But Morrison isn't honest." "No, but Morrison isn't the only authority. We go over his head, federal jurisdiction, the territorial governor, maybe even the War Department, since this involves falsified military intelligence." Hope flickered in Sam's chest. "You can do that?" "I can try. It'll take time, maybe weeks. And Vance will fight every step, but yes, we can do this." For the first time since arriving in Prescott, Sam felt like they might actually have a chance. The next 3 days were a blur of activity. Whitfield filed motions, sent telegrams, called in favors from his connections in Denver and Washington. Sam and Ayanna stayed close to the boarding house, venturing out only for supplies and to check on the prisoners. Vance remained confident in his cell, chatting amiably with the guards, receiving visitors who came bearing food and sympathy. Wade and Pike were less comfortable, growing more agitated as the days passed. On the fourth day, everything changed. Sam was walking back from the general store when he heard shouting from the direction of the sheriff's office. He broke into a run, arriving to find Sheriff Dalton standing in the street, face red with anger. "They're gone," Dalton said. "All three of them. Escaped during the night." "How?" Sam demanded. "Someone cut the bars. Professional job. Had to be planned." Sam pushed past him into the jail. The cell that had held Vance was empty, one bar cut cleanly through. Same with the cell holding Wade and Pike. No sign of struggle, no blood, just gone. "Where's your night deputy?" Sam asked. "Found him this morning, unconscious in the alley. Hit from behind. Didn't see who." Sam's mind raced. Vance had arranged this. Had people on the outside working for him? Now he was free, and he would disappear. All the evidence, all the effort, all of it for nothing. Unless. "He won't run far," Sam said. "Not yet." "Why not?" "Because the evidence is still here. The documents, the map. As long as those exist, he's in danger. He needs to destroy them. And to do that, he needs to find me." Dalton's eyes widened. "He's coming for you." "Yes, which means we can set a trap." They worked quickly. Sam moved the real evidence to a safe place, then created a duplicate set using similar-looking papers. He spread these across the table in his room at the boarding house, making it look like he was studying them. Then he, Ayanna, and Whitfield hid in the adjacent room, weapons ready. They didn't have to wait long. Around midnight, Sam heard the creak of floorboards in the hallway. The door to his room opened slowly. 3 shadows moved inside. In the moonlight through the window, Sam could make out their shapes: Vance, Wade, Pike. They moved to the table where the fake documents lay. Vance picked them up, started sorting through them. "Burn it all," he said quietly. "Every page, nothing left." Wade lit a match. That's when Sam kicked open the door between rooms. "Don't move." All 3 men froze. Sam stepped into the room, rifle leveled. Ayanna came behind him, pistol ready. Whitfield stayed back, ready to get help if needed. "It's over, Vance," Sam said. "The real evidence is somewhere safe. Multiple copies. Even if you kill me, even if you destroy everything here, the truth is going to come out." Vance smiled. It was the same cold smile Sam had seen before. "You really think you've won? You think any of this matters?" "It matters to the people you killed. The people I killed are dead. They don't care anymore. And the people who are alive, they care about one thing. Power, I have it, you don't. That's all that matters in the end." "Maybe, but I'm going to make you famous, Vance. Every newspaper in the territory is going to know your name, your face, what you did. You won't be able to show yourself anywhere without people remembering, without people knowing. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering when justice will finally catch up." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Vance's face. "Or," Sam continued, "you can confess, now, in front of witnesses. Tell the truth. Maybe a judge will show mercy. Maybe you'll die in prison instead of at the end of a rope. But at least you'll die human, not a monster everyone remembers, and no one mourns." The moment stretched. Sam could see Vance calculating, weighing options, looking for an angle. Then Wade moved. Fast. His hand went for his gun. Sam didn't hesitate. He fired. The bullet took Wade in the chest. The man fell backward, his own shot going wild, punching through the ceiling. Pike raised his hands immediately. "I surrender. Don't shoot." But Vance ran. He bolted for the window, smashing through it in a shower of glass, dropping to the street below. Sam raced after him, but by the time he reached the window, Vance was already on a horse riding hard toward the edge of town. "Let him go," Ayanna said. "We have Pike, and Wade is dying. They can testify." She was right. Wade lay on the floor, blood spreading across his shirt. His breathing was shallow, fading. Sam knelt beside him. "Wade, can you hear me?" The man's eyes opened. "Yeah." "Vance left you, ran. You understand that? He saved himself and left you to die." "Figures. You can make it right. Tell the truth. Give us a statement. About what Vance did, about the massacre, about everything." Wade coughed. More blood. "Why should I?" "Because you're dying anyway. And this is your one chance to die, meaning something instead of nothing." The two men stared at each other. Then Wade nodded slightly. "Get paper." Whitfield scrambled for paper and pen. Wade dictated a confession. Slow, painful, but thorough. He detailed everything. The planning of the massacre, the payments to Colonel Creed, the murder of Rebecca and Emma Garrison, the enslavement of Ayanna and others. By the time he finished, the sky outside was turning gray with dawn. "That enough?" Wade asked. "That's enough," Sam said. "Good." Wade's eyes closed. He took one more breath, let it out, and was still. Pike, watching from the corner where Sam had tied him, looked sick. "I'll testify too. Whatever you need. Just don't kill me." "I'm not going to kill you," Sam said. "You're going to face trial, real trial, federal court, and you're going to tell them everything." By noon, federal marshals had arrived from Phoenix. Whitfield's telegrams had worked. The territorial governor, pressured by representatives in Washington, had ordered a full investigation. Morrison was removed from the case. A new judge was appointed. Pike was taken into custody by the marshals. Clayton Vance was still at large, but his face was on wanted posters throughout the territory, a reward of $500 for his capture. He wouldn't stay free long. 6 months later, Sam stood on the porch of his cabin, watching Ayanna plant seeds in the expanded garden. She moved with easy grace, her body fully healed, her spirit recovering slowly. The scars would always be there, but they didn't define her anymore. Ethan was practicing with the rifle, setting up targets at increasingly difficult distances. The boy had grown 2 inches since spring, was starting to fill out through the shoulders. In another year or two, he would be a man. The trial had lasted 3 weeks. Pike testified. Wade's confession was entered into evidence. Documents were examined by experts. Colonel Creed was arrested, dishonorably discharged, sentenced to 20 years in military prison. Judge Morrison was removed from the bench, investigated for corruption, and Clayton Vance was found 2 months after he fled Prescott. A prospector spotted him hiding in an abandoned mine in the Superstition Mountains, the same mountains where he had enslaved Ayanna and others. Federal marshals took him into custody. He was tried, convicted on 12 counts, including murder and conspiracy, sentenced to hang. Sam had attended the hanging, not out of vengeance, but because he needed to see it end. Needed to know that this chapter was truly closed. Vance had walked to the gallows with the same cold confidence he had always shown, right up until the moment the trapdoor opened. Then it was over. The territorial government had offered reparations, money for the survivors of Red Cliff Canyon. Official apologies. Sam had helped distribute the funds, tracking down the few Apache families who remained. It wasn't enough. Could never be enough. But it was something. The land in Red Cliff Canyon had been returned to the Apache people. They were rebuilding there now. A small village, a school, a church, life growing from ashes. And here in Salt River Valley, Sam was building something too. With Ayanna, with Ethan. Not a replacement for what was lost, but something new, something earned through pain and sacrifice and the stubborn refusal to give up on justice. Ayanna looked up from her planting and saw Sam watching. She smiled. It was a real smile now, unguarded. The smile of someone who no longer had to be afraid. Sam smiled back. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the valley in gold and orange, Ayana spoke quietly. Do you think about them? Your wife, your daughter. Every day, Sam said. Does it hurt less? No, but it hurts different. Like an old wound that aches when the weather changes. You learn to live with it. I think about Dakota and my parents, the people who died. I know. But I also think about the future now. What comes next? What we're building here. Sam looked at her. What do you see in that future? Ayana was quiet for a moment. I see a home, a family, not the one I lost, but a new one, built by choice, by trust, by people who decide to stay together instead of being forced together. That sounds good. It does, doesn't it? They sat in comfortable silence as the sun dropped behind the mountains. Ethan came up from the range, rifle over his shoulder, looking pleased with himself. Got 8 out of 10 at 60 yards, he announced proudly. That's good shooting, Sam said. Think I could go hunting tomorrow? There's deer up in the hills. If you finish your chores first. I will. The boy went inside to clean his rifle. Sam and Ayana remained on the porch, watching the stars emerge one by one. Sam, Ayana said, there's something I need to tell you. What is it? I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air. Sam turned to look at her, searching her face. She met his eyes steadily, a hint of nervousness there, but also joy. You're sure? He asked. I'm sure. About 6 weeks, I think. Sam's mind reeled. A child. New life. The possibility of family again. Of fatherhood. Of all the things he thought he had lost forever when Emma died. How do you feel about it? He asked carefully. Scared, hopeful, happy, all of it at once. She paused. How do you feel? Sam thought about it, really thought. And what he felt underneath the fear and the uncertainty and the memory of loss was something he hadn't felt in years, hope. I feel like maybe the world isn't just about what we lose, he said. Maybe it's also about what we find, what we build, what we become. Ayana took his hand. Then let's build something good. Something that honors the people we lost. Something that gives meaning to everything we survived. Yes, Sam said. Let's do that. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled at the rising moon. The sound was lonely but also beautiful. A creature calling out into the darkness, announcing its existence, claiming its place in the world. Sam understood that feeling now. For 5 years he had been silent, hiding, running from his past and the guilt he carried. But Ayana had found him, had trusted him, had given him a reason to step back into the light. And now they would build something together, a life, a family, a legacy, not because they had forgotten the past, but because they had faced it, had fought for justice, had refused to let evil win without a fight. The night he couldn't forget had led to this moment, this porch, this woman beside him, this child growing inside her, this future spreading out ahead of them like the valley below, full of possibility and promise. It wasn't redemption. You couldn't redeem 47 dead, couldn't bring back Rebecca and Emma, couldn't undo what had been done. But it was something, a second chance, a new beginning, a reason to wake up each morning and believe that the world, despite all its cruelty and injustice, still had room for hope. Sam squeezed Ayana's hand. She squeezed back. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was comfortable now, filled with understanding earned through shared pain and shared survival. The kind of silence that only comes when two people have walked through fire together and emerged on the other side. Then Ayana turned to face him fully. Sam, will you marry me? Sam's breath caught. Of all the things he had expected her to say, this was not among them. In the world he knew, the world he had been raised in, men asked women. That was the order of things, the way it was done. I thought, he began, stumbling over the words, I thought I should be the one to ask. You already asked, Ayana said, her voice steady and sure. Every day you chose to stand between me and harm. Every night you chose to believe I was worth protecting. Every moment you chose to see me as a person, not property, not a burden, not a debt to be repaid. You've been asking for months, Sam. I'm just answering. Sam felt his eyes burn with tears he thought he had exhausted years ago. But these were different. Not tears of grief or guilt or rage at the injustice of the world. These were something he had almost forgotten existed. Well, simple and pure and overwhelming. Yes, he said, his voice rough. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They stood then there on the porch under the based Arizona sky. They held each other the way two people hold each other when they understand how close they came to never meeting, never knowing, never having this moment. Not with desperation, but with gratitude, with the quiet certainty that they had found something worth keeping. We'll ride to Red Cliff Canyon tomorrow, Ayanna said against his chest. Tell my people, ask for their blessing. And if they refuse it, then we marry anyway. We've earned that right. She pulled back to look at Ian, her dark eyes reflecting starlight. But they won't refuse. They'll see what I see. A man who tried to save us when he realized the truth. A man who has spent every day since trying to make amends. I don't deserve you. Good, because I'm not interested in what you deserve. I'm interested in what we build together. She touched his face, her calloused fingers gentle against his scarred cheek. I want to wake up beside you. I want to plant gardens with you. I want to teach our children about both our peoples. I want a life, Sam. A real one, with you. Then that's what we'll have, Sam said, for however long we're given. They kissed then, under the wheeling stars, with the desert wind carrying the scent of sage and the distant call of a coyote marking the darkness. A promise sealed not with ceremony or witnesses, but with the simple act of two wounded people choosing each other, choosing life, choosing to believe that tomorrow could be better than yesterday. When they finally parted, Sam took her hand again. She squeezed it tight. And together they sat on the porch of the cabin in Salt River Valley, watching the stars wheel overhead, listening to the wind sing through the cottonwoods, feeling the future unfold around them like a blanket pulled close on a cold night. They had survived the fire, both of them. And now, finally, they were learning to live again. That was enough. That was everything. 20 years later, 20 years had passed like water flowing through the canyon, slow and inevitable, carving new shapes into old stone. Samuel Garrison sat on the porch of his cabin, though cabin was no longer the right word. Two buildings now stood where one had been, connected by a covered walkway his hands had built. The garden stretched across half an acre, tended by 3 generations. The fence line reached twice as far into the valley. The man in the rocking chair was 73 years old now, his hair white as alkali dust, his hands gnarled like juniper roots, but still steady enough to carve. At his feet sat a boy of 6, playing with wooden horses those hands had made. Grandpa, the boy said, looking up with eyes the same dark brown as his grandmother's. Tell me the story again. Sam smiled. The smile came easier these days, carved into his face by 20 years of mornings waking beside Ayanna, 20 years of watching Ethan grow into a man, 20 years of seeing life persist despite everything that had tried to end it. Which story, Jacob? The one about the night you couldn't forget, about how you and Grandma met. Sam looked out across the valley. Ayanna was in the garden with their daughter Maria, now 23, teaching her about herbs the same way her own mother had taught her. Ethan lived in the neighboring cabin with his wife Sarah and their 3 children. The valley wasn't lonely anymore. Hadn't been for a long time. That's a long story, Sam said. I like long stories. Jacob climbed into his grandfather's lap, settling in with the confidence of a child who had never known violence, never known hunger, never known what it meant to run for your life across desert that wanted you dead. Sam wrapped his arms around the boy. These moments were precious, not because they were rare, but because he remembered when he thought he would never have them again, when he believed his life would end alone in a cabin with nothing but guilt for company. All right then, he said. It was the year 1875. I was 48 years old and I thought my life was over. But it wasn't, Jacob said, knowing the story but wanting to hear it anyway. No, it wasn't. One August morning, hot enough to make the air dance, I was fixing the fence with young Ethan. That's when I saw her, a woman on the ridge, stumbling, falling, getting back up, coming toward us like she was following a star only she could see. And she said she couldn't forget the night. That's right. She said, I couldn't forget that night. You saved my life. That's why I'm standing here. Sam's voice softened. And I realized she was the child I'd saved 5 years before, the one I thought had died. But she hadn't. She survived everything that tried to kill her, and she came back. Because you were a good man? Because she was brave enough to trust one. There's a difference. The sun began its descent behind the mountains, painting the valley in the same gold and orange it had painted 20 years ago, and 40 years before that, and would paint 100 years hence. Some things changed, some things endured. Ayana came up from the garden, dirt on her hands, gray threading through her black hair, but her steps still sure. She saw Sam with Jacob and smiled, that unguarded smile he had first seen 6 months into their life together, when she finally believed she was safe. She climbed the porch steps and stood behind the rocking chair, one hand on Sam's shoulder. Telling stories? The story, Jacob said. The good one. They're all good stories now, Ayana said. She bent and kissed the top of Sam's head. Even the ones that started bad. Maria called from the garden, something about the evening meal. Jacob scrambled down and ran to help, leaving Sam and Ayana alone on the porch as the day faded. Do you really tell him everything? Ayana asked quietly. Not everything. Not yet. When he's older, I'll tell him about the hard parts. The blood, the choices, the cost. Sam took her hand. But for now, I tell him the important part, which is that some nights are so terrible you think you'll never forget them, that they'll define you forever. But if you're lucky, if you're stubborn enough, if you find the right person to stand beside you, those nights become something else, not forgotten, but transformed, made into the foundation of something good. Ayana squeezed his hand. That's a better story than the one I lived. We earned a better story, both of us. They sat together as the stars emerged one by one, as they had done for 7,000 evenings, give or take, and would do for however many remained. Inside the cabin, they could hear Jacob laughing, Maria singing, the sounds of a family being a family. The night Sam couldn't forget had led to this porch, this woman, this valley full of life where once there had been only silence and guilt. Not redemption because some things couldn't be redeemed, but transformation, the kind that turned ashes into soil, and soil into gardens, and gardens into the place where children played without fear. He had been 48 years old and certain his story was over. He had been wrong. Some stories, it turned out, were only just beginning.